Hello again everybody, and welcome to video number 32 of my Linux Commands for Beginners series. And in this video I'm going to go over the apt-get command, which is the command that's used in Debian and Ubuntu based systems to install new software packages. Now unfortunately that means if you are using a Linux distribution that is not based on Debian or Ubuntu, the apt-get command will not work for you, and therefore this tutorial will not have value for you. But thankfully, since a lot of distributions out there are based on Debian or Ubuntu, chances are yours is probably among them. The most popular Debian-based distributions are Ubuntu and Linux Mint, but there's a number of other ones, some of them with large use bases, and some of those are not that popular, but the majority of them are based on Ubuntu or Debian. So hopefully you are using one of those systems. So anyway, the apt-get command is the command that we're going over, and the apt-get command actually has several subcommands that you also include when you execute it. For example, install, update, dist, upgrade, and there's a number of others, and I'm going to go over several of them now. Now first of all, you need sudo access or root privileges in order to execute the apt-get command. Now for example, if I ran just apt-get update just like that, it's not going to let me because I didn't use sudo, or I didn't run the command as root, so I'm not allowed to execute this command. So what you want to do is prefix the command with sudo each time you execute it. So sudo apt-get update. Now first of all, what update does, the update portion of the apt-get command, that freshens up your database. Now basically here's the way it works. The Debian-based systems include software repositories, which are servers that include the majority of the Linux packages that you would ever want. And those packages change all the time. The developers will release new versions, or new programs will become available, or older unmaintained programs will go away. When you run apt-get update, what it does is it downloads all the list of all the packages that are available on all the repositories on your system. Now when you install a Debian-based distribution, you have a default repository list, and most people, especially beginners, really don't have to ever edit that. But as you get to be more intermediate, you'll learn how to add new software sources. Now I'm not going to go over how to add software sources in this video. I just wanted to make sure you knew that the possibility does exist. And people will do that, for example, if there's a program that is not available in the repositories for the distribution, if they want to install something that's outside of that. Now one example I use personally is VirtualBox, which is a very useful program. VirtualBox is included in a lot of Debian-based distribution repositories, but often not the newest version. But anyway, that's beyond the scope of this distribution. I just wanted to let you know about it. Now, the apt-get update command, what I just did, again, is I just downloaded the list of all the available packages. And before you install software, this is something that I recommend that you do. And the reason for that is because if you install a package, you might be installing an older version because your system doesn't know that a newer version is available until you update your package sources with the apt-get update command. Now thankfully on most Debian-based distributions you probably don't need to do this every time because most of them include an update manager which installs updates on your system, and it will often do an apt-get update and download the list of or the latest list of packages. But if this is something that I should make you aware of, because if you want to make sure you're getting the latest version, definitely update your package lists first. Now the next thing I want to show you how to do is to actually install a program. So the subcommand for that is install. So apt-get install, and then the name of the program that you want to install. Now if you don't know the name of a program, I'll just give you one. Frozen-Bubble. This is available in most Debian-based systems, and it's an awesome, really addictive game that you definitely should check out. So basically sudo apt-get install and then the name of something to install. In this case we want to install Frozen Bubble. So I'll press enter. And notice, you guys, it would have asked me for my password, but I've just entered that recently, so it cached it. But it'll probably ask you for a password. And notice here, I wanted to install just one program, but look what it's doing. It's installing a bunch of things. Well, what's going on here? Well, this is normal, because the apt-get program, or the apt-get command, it will actually resolve all the dependencies. So it takes the package that you want to install. In this case, we want to install Frozen Bubble, and it computes what's required to make Frozen Bubble work. Because if you just install the Frozen Bubble package by itself, the game would not launch because there's requirements for it. But apt-get is smart enough to check the header and understand what's required to make Frozen Bubble work, and it will install everything that's required. So don't be concerned that it's installing a zillion things and it's going to fill up your hard drive. These are all just libraries, and they're really small things. You notice down here, even though it's installing 18 programs, it's only going to get 24 megabytes worth of packages, which will need, on my system, you see, it'll take an additional 29.3 megabytes of hard drive space. And that's nothing, so you don't have to worry. So go ahead and press Y and then Enter to confirm that you want to continue. And by the way, you guys, not all programs will install dependencies, because some programs will run by themselves, or maybe you have dependencies already installed. So now I'm actually able to run the Frozen Bubble program because I installed it. If I was to check my application menu, I would see it installed there, but I can't actually move my screen recorder over to my app menu, so I apologize, I won't actually be able to show you. Now this is getting into the next command that I want to show you, which is remove. Say for example you installed the Frozen Bubble program or the game, and you decided that, you know, I'm full of it, the game really isn't as fun as I made it sound. Well, you can actually remove it. So sudo space apt-get remove, then the name of the program you want to remove. Press enter, and it's going to remove it. So basically it's telling you, this is how to read the output. After you uninstall, these programs are no longer required, but I only asked it to uninstall Frozen Bubble, so that's all it's going to do. And I'll go into how to remove all these programs in just a second, or packages rather. But anyway, the Frozen Bubble game is now removed because I executed apt-get remove Frozen Bubble, so now Frozen Bubble is removed from my system. Now, say for example that I wanted to purge not only just the program, but also any config files that the program might have downloaded. Because by default, if you install a program and it includes something in /etc like a configuration file, it'll leave the configuration file on your system. So when you're uninstalling program and you're sure you're not going to need it or the configuration files, then you do --purge. So apt-get remove --purge Frozen Bubble, and that'll remove not only that package but all the config files. Excuse me. Now notice though, it doesn't actually remove all of these programs and libraries. These packages are still on my system. They are not required. It says these packages are no longer required because these packages here were all installed as a dependency to a program that I no longer have on my system. And that leads me into the next subcommand. apt-get auto remove. Sudo apt-get auto remove. Press enter, and it looks for all the packages that are no longer needed by any package on your system, and it'll go ahead and remove all these. And you'll often notice this when you run your security updates. It might install a newer version of the kernel, so you might actually see the Linux kernel listed here. That's fine, but I do recommend that you look at these packages and understand that you know what you're actually removing. Now libraries, which start with lib here, those are almost always okay because these libraries are not required by anything, so we don't need them on our system. But just double check. I have seen in the past bugs on Debian based Linux distributions which try to remove things that are actually useful. Now for example, I've seen it try to remove a file manager or some pretty important stuff. So even though these are not taking up very much space on my system, you might want to clean this up once in a while, but still just make sure you're looking into it. But I know that these packages are okay to remove, so I'll press Y and then enter, and it's going to remove those packages. Now, another thing to note is that anytime you run updates or install programs, basically what happens is a local copy of those packages are saved on your hard drive. And the reason why is because, say for example, something gets damaged on your system, like a program stops working and gets corrupted. You know how hard drives are. Excuse me, if it gets like a bad sector in just the right place, the program stops working and you need to reinstall the program. Well, actually, in Linux, or excuse me, Debian-based distributions, all of those packages are saved, the ones that you specifically install, just in case you have to reinstall those in the future. And that can actually start to take up space, especially if you are installing Linux on a flash drive or something. So if ever you want to clean up your local database, sudo apt-get clean will remove the local cached versions of the packages that you have downloaded. But don't do this unless you actually have to, like you're running out of space. And the reason why is because if you find yourself in trouble and you need to reinstall something, sometimes it can get really hard to get something back onto your system. Now, I'll give you an example. One time I messed up the network manager on a Linux distribution, and I had also cleaned my local database, so I couldn't get internet access to download anything from the repositories because the network manager was damaged. And it would have been solved easily by just reinstalling the program, the package, which is locally cached. But I wasn't able to do that because I have already cleaned it, and restoring that system actually was a nightmare. So if you're running low on space and your system is currently working perfect, then you can actually execute the sudo apt-get clean command to get a little bit of your hard drive space back. But again, just be careful. Now that has been your tutorial on installing packages from the repositories on Debian-based systems. Oh, and one more thing I wanted to mention, because you guys are probably wondering, well, what if I don't know the name of the program that I want to install? And for those of you who are probably asking that question, all, or at least most, Debian-based distributions include a package manager or software center of some sort where you can actually browse through different categories of programs and get the names and install them from there. And that's probably the preferred way of doing it on GUI-based distributions. But anyway, that's really all there is to it on using the command line to install programs. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that.